Formula One on 5 Live.
Welcome to Las Vegas. We are moments away from qualifying getting underway to set the grid for the Grand Prix, and Las Vegas is looking resplendent. The lights are illuminating the circuit and the iconic famous hotels are lit up around it. I'm looking out over Planet Hollywood, the Bellagio, the Sphere, and I have to say the fans are still piling into the circuit, ready to witness the power hour here in Las Vegas. And what do we know as we head into this 60-minute session? Well, not too much, I have to say. Yesterday was a tricky one for the teams and drivers, and for everyone involved in Formula One, actually, as we only managed 8 or 9 minutes of FP1. That was because there were problems with the track, a water valve covering popping up and damaging both the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon's Alpine car. We then had a delayed FP2 session, but 90 minutes of running to help the teams and drivers get used to this new track here in Vegas. And then this evening, we've already had FP3, normal running in there and no problems with any water valve covers popping up. And now we are approaching qualifying. We can't wait to see who's going to take pole position under the lights here. It's Rosanna Tennant with you in Vegas alongside former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, racing driver Alice Powell, and the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson. Jolyon, this is it, the moment we've all been waiting for. Some say for a couple of days, but we could say for almost 40 years. We haven't raced here since 1982, and finally we're going to find out who can master the streets here in Las Vegas. Who have you got your eye on?
I'm really looking forward to this because there's so many unknowns. We had a red flag at the end of FP3 earlier on. Alex Albon was the first driver to hit a wall, and it denied many of the front runners a chance to get in their final qualifying simulation. So George Russell ended top, but I still think the Ferraris are looking really strong. Carlos Sainz has a 10th place grid penalty. He's going to be hampered by that very unlucky incident with the water valve cover. But Charles Leclerc, for me, is the main man, and of course the threat will be Max Verstappen.
Yes, you can't rule the three-time world champion out. Max Verstappen, although not showing his strongest hand perhaps in FP3, we're sure he'll be right up at the sharp end of the grid. You mentioned Carlos Sainz with that 10th-place grid penalty, a strange sort of idiosyncrasy of Formula One, meaning that Ferrari still picked up that penalty for Carlos because of the damage sustained to his car from that water valve cover. They wanted some mitigation. They wanted to take a new battery and to change the car up without penalty, but Formula One and the FIA saying no, we have to follow the regulations. Do we expect then, Alice, that perhaps Ferrari are going to use Carlos Sainz a little bit as a sacrificial lamb this evening to help propel Charles Leclerc, his teammate, further up the order?
Possibly, but Carlos at the same time might be saying, well, hang on, I need to get as high up the grid as possible, because otherwise, let's say he compromises his qualifying, helping hit his teammate, he could then be down outside of the top 15 if he doesn't end up setting a lap. If he, of course, they both get through into Q3, which they should. And it also makes it quite tough with the track evolution. So they both can't give each other a tow at the same time. So one would have to lead first with then the next driver behind, and then they'd swap around the next lap. So most of the drivers have been doing a decent warm-up lap, so going out and doing a prep lap, and then they're doing a push lap, then they're doing a cool lap, and then usually the second push lap is actually the fastest lap. So these tyres are really taking a lot of building, a lot of tyre temperature effort has got to go into making sure that they are as warm as possible. Air temperature at the moment is 14.8 degrees, so it's a good sort of 3-4 degrees cooler than what we experienced earlier on in the day with free practice 3. So it's I've chatted and waffled a little bit, but I think the long and short of it is, I think Carlos Sainz will want to try and do as best as he can, because Leclerc, let's face it, he's looked so strong. Okay, they both didn't get a lap in the end due to the red flag on the soft tyre in the last free practice session, but previous to that, in free practice 2, Leclerc was half a second up the road to everybody else.
Yeah, looking strong in the Ferrari, Charles Leclerc is. We had a few standout performances, I'd say, in FP3. Whether or not they would have slipped further down the order if we indeed had got to the full 60 minutes of running, Andrew Benson. We had Logan Sargent, the home hero, P3 in the Williams, and his teammate Alex Albon, P6. Who are you a little bit worried for this qualifying session? Who hasn't done enough prep, do you think, and needs to really pull something out of the bag in this 60 minutes?
Well, it's again, Rosanna, Anna, it's really hard to predict. I'm not expecting the usual suspects to go out in Q1. One thing we should bear in mind as well is that Lance Stroll, the second Aston Martin driver, he's been given a 5-place grid penalty for overtaking Carlos Sainz's Ferrari under yellow caution flags in the final practice session earlier today. So I don't think Stroll will do especially well in qualifying anyway, but he's going to take 5 places back from wherever that is.
Yeah, it's been going better for Aston Martin, or at least at the last time out, or the last time of asking Interlagos in Brazil. It was better for the team in as a whole. Obviously, Fernando Alonso managing to get on the podium.
But just a reminder, Pierre, we can be slow on pit exit, but not stationary.
Ah, yes, the famous slowing at the end of the pit lane. Is that going to be a problem here? It's a tricky one to filter out of, isn't it, Jolyon?
Well, it's what has been the case for qualifying. It feels like we're back to normality suddenly with a radio message like that. The razzle-dazzle of Vegas has taken over the show. But it does feel like this is it now. Qualifying back on. We're into Q1. And we've already gone a minute through the session. So they've got to watch out for it. But, Alice, now we've had a few runnings of drivers getting penalised for stopping in the fast lane, then going too slowly on the way round. Surely this time, with Pierre Gasly being told very clearly on the way out of the pits for his first lap, just go slowly, but do not stop. Yeah,
I'm hoping we're over that now, because the nature of the pit lane as it comes out through effectively bleeds into turn 2, doesn't it? So I'd like to think we're over that. It's a long circuit here. It's 3.8 miles, so 6.2 kilometres. Second longest track on the calendar after Spa. So hopefully they will all behave and not be creeping round slowly, as Kevin Magnussen is the first driver to come round on the soft tyre, of course, to start the first flying lap of this qualifying session.
Here we go then, 16 minutes left on the clock with 2 minutes through Q1 already, and Magnussen is the first man coming through turn 3, getting up towards the barrier on the outside. He's going to wind it up and get a time on the board. The fastest time so far this weekend was George Russell in practice earlier on a 1 minute 34.093. With Track Evolution, that should quickly be eclipsed. And Magnussen is already through the first sector, coming sweeping around the MSG sphere, lit up in a deep burgundy. It's quite a spectacle for the drivers coming through. Turns 6, 7, 8 and 9, and then Magnussen can get on the gas down Sands Avenue, flat out sweeping to the right in his Haas, coming through turn 10, then bring it round to the left to probably the hardest corner on the circuit, Alice, the corner where we've seen so many problems at turn 12.
Yeah, we have, and he's quite nice and neat through there. Tyre temperature, of course, is so critical, and with these long straights, it is quite easy to lose tyre temperature, and especially in these kind of conditions as well. But Magnussen, he didn't have a lock-up, got through turn 12 quite nicely, but then he's got another tough braking zone heading down nearly 210 mile an hour into the braking zone of turn 14. It looks like it's slightly off camber there on the apex of turn 14, but majority of the drivers are actually going slightly wider than you normally would around there. But Kevin Magnussen, of course, is the first driver to set a lap time, and he jumps up to the top of the time to 1:35.968.
Okay, so some way adrift then for Magnussen on his first lap. He's 9/10 down on what he did earlier on, but he's half a second up on his teammate Nico Hülkenberg. Andrew, the Ferraris may be setting their stall out straight away here.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? We were just speculating about whether they'll get a tow, and Sainz is leading Leclerc around the track. Now, usually with a tow, Jolyon, they want about 4 or 5 seconds of lap time gap, don't they, between them? And it looks from the track map that that's about where Leclerc is behind Sainz. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Sainz's qualifying is being compromised, but it does suggest that Leclerc is being helped.
Indeed. The two Ferraris on their first flying lap, coming down towards turn 14, then down at the MGM Grand, getting a flying lap on the board. Sergio Perez is out there as well. In fact, 16 drivers are on the circuit. Max Verstappen is on an out lap. In the pits is just Fernando Alonso, who's actually just trundles out past us now. And then George Russell, Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon still sitting and waiting. This is the sound of Charles Leclerc, fastest in the first 2 sectors in the Ferrari, building it up towards 200 miles per hour, flashing through past us at the final corner. And Leclerc goes to the top of the times, 1 minute 34.898, with still 8/10 adrift of Russell's practice time though.
Yeah, the track will evolve pretty quickly. We'll definitely get into the 133s, that is for sure. 30% chance of rain during this session. We got soaked, didn't we, on the way back from the track the other day, so it definitely can rain here in the desert.
Absolutely drenched, and it was starting to get cold. And then in the desert, not only are we worried about the cold temperatures, I know the geographers will say deserts get cold. There's the classic thing. They don't get wet, but we did get drenched the other night walking back. Obviously didn't bring an umbrella. And 30% chance, I'm fancying my chances it's not going to rain right now, but with the cool temperatures, that would play havoc, of course, if that came down at any time within the hour. Logan Sargent comes through, fastest final sector in the Williams. Leclerc is at the top. Sargent jumps straight into second place. 11 drivers have done lap times, 12 now as Gasly comes through, and this is the sound of the champion coming through turn 6. Long, almost never-ending left-hander, and then you've got to pick a braking point for turn 7. It's a tight left, brings you into a tight right, another tight left at turn 9. And then Verstappen can jump on the throttle and now drive his way down towards the Las Vegas Strip and turn 12. A really tricky braking zone, flat out through the right, flat out through the left, and then pick your braking zone for turn 12. Crucial corner, bit of traffic for Verstappen on this lap. He had done the fastest first sector. That's just been taken by Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. So we've got a Williams flying in second place. We've got a Haas out there doing a really strong lap as well, as Verstappen now comes down towards the final corner on the circuit, building the speed all the way. 214, 15, 16 miles per hour when he hits the brakes for turn 14. MGM Grand, the third biggest hotel in the world, is facing him as he turns it into the left-hander, gets on the gas, bumps over the curb at turn 15, and now he can hit the throttle again. It's a really fast circuit, this one. There is a 2-kilometre straight on it. The final straight is 800 metres, and Verstappen is quick through it, but not quick enough to depose Leclerc. He's 900ths away. Leclerc stays at the top.
I tell you what, Jolyon, I think we will probably get a few surprises in this qualifying session. Maybe Kevin Magnussen, who just pops up into P4. Potentially he could be one of those, but Sargent's looking fairly strong. I don't want to jinx it, of course, but he had a pretty decent free practice 3. He was third fastest, and
pretty decent.
Yeah, third fastest now as well.
He's flying out there. The Williams is good in a straight line. That's been the case all year, and for more than 1 year as well. It's how they built their car for a long time. And needless to say, when straight line speed is important, and the final sector is basically the Las Vegas Strip, 1.9 kilometres of it, one left-hander, and then back on the gas for another 800 metres to the line. That is very, very strong for them. And Sargent is quick. He's back in the pits. He's in third position. But Williams certainly not looking like the usual contenders to jump out of this Q1 session. We've got 10 minutes left. We've got the Ferraris on a fast lap. Leclerc already top of the times. Sainz out there pushing, and he'll come through in just a moment. Leclerc's going quicker, though.
Yeah, Leclerc is pushing hard. Likes a street circuit, doesn't he? As he flies through the final corner, sparks flying out the back of his car, and he's going to come across the line. And he's second now. There we go. 7/10 clear of Carlos Sainz, who popped through in front of him in P2. And I would say he wasn't really benefiting from a tow, really, from his teammate. That's impressive from Leclerc. Very impressive.
Fastest lap of the weekend then from Charles Leclerc. Finally, someone has beaten George Russell's free practice time, and it's Leclerc by just a couple of hundredths of a second. But as you say, he's now 7/10 clear of the field. This is the sound of Lando Norris.
I got blocked. He completely got in my way.
And that was Norris whinging about traffic. Traffic of Sergio Perez. Could be significant there. Perez in the way, sitting on the racing line, as Norris was trying to come through. And, well, that would be an immediate case referred to the stewards then. Norris down in 10th place, not able to improve on that last lap. He's on another flyer. Lap times are coming in thick and fast because these tyres are hanging on for more than one lap as well, as you said before.
Yeah, you get another bite at the cherry, don't you? You know, it's just a track where the temperature of the tyre is hugely important. Andrew touched on that had some cold tyre degradation and graining on the tyres, but that's why they then get another bite of the cherry. But you can make sure that you've still got life in it for that second push lap. You could go faster.
That'll be an interesting dynamic moving forward through the hour, whether the first flying lap will become the money shot, as it often is, or Will they need a build lap? Will they need 2 flying laps to improve? That's what Leclerc's had to go to the top. Sainz is in second. There are 3 drivers yet to pop in a time. This is the sound of one of them. Alex Albon comes through the final left-hander and jumps up to 4th position in the Williams. Really strong run from him, which just leaves the 2 Mercedes 19th and 20th without a time on the board. And Hamilton now hits the brakes for turn 14, turns in, gets a nice apex, launches the curb at turn 15, but that looks pretty quick as Norris jumps up to 2nd place and we get our first lap deleted for track limits at turn 8. It's Yuki Tsunoda who was already at the back of the field. Hamilton comes through the final left-hander and jumps up to 3rd place, fastest final sector of anyone. The Mercedes is finding a bit of pace, but still Leclerc's half a second clear.
Yeah, he is. This is the sound now of George Russell as he goes down the very 1.7 kilometre long straight as he heads down into turn 14, gets the car stopped nicely, hasn't set a personal best at all in that middle sector and hasn't really set a lap time, but it looks like he's bled off, he's lifted off, made a mistake somewhere along the lap, but he's still got 7 minutes and 2 and 1 seconds left on the clock to try and set a lap time.
Yeah, Russell then under a little bit of pressure now, less than 7 minutes on. Mercedes waited for quite a while, and that's going to be a little bit of nervy times. Rosanna?
I've been listening into the radio of Oscar Piastri and the McLaren team, and he's being told the time will come on later laps, so there's no need to over-push on the first lap. So this conundrum of when the performance will come with these tyres is going to rumble on. I think the track is evolving, the tyres are perhaps behaving a little differently to what they expected, but yes, definitely don't want to take everything out of the tyres on those first few laps.
We were talking about toes earlier, Joe, and it looked to me like Fernando Alonso gave Lance Stroll, his teammate, a toe on that last lap. Stroll's just jumped up, I'm afraid, only to 14th place. Alonso's 8th at the moment.
So Russell is the last man to set a time. He's on another flying lap now, and he was over track limits at turn 8. So a tight tight right-hander in the fiddly middle sector. That's where Russell came a cropper on the last lap, and he will go again. So 6 minutes left on the clock. The full order is Leclerc, half a second clear of Perez, Hamilton, Norris, Sainz, Verstappen, Albon, Alonso, Sargent in the top 10, as is Magnussen. Then just outside, it's Piastri who jumps up to 6th, as I say that, meaning it's Bottas now 12th. Ocon, Stroll, Zhou 15th, and in the drop zone Ricciardo 16th and in the pits. Hulkenberg's just left the pits in 17th. Gasly's 18th. Tsunoda had a lap time deleted and is in the pits in 19th, and then it's George Russell, but this is the sound of the Mercedes coming up towards the line down Harmon Avenue, final straight, brings it to the left hand side, hurtling through, and Russell moves up to 5th place. So Zhou is dropped into the bottom 5. And on the precipice is Lance Stroll. Andrew, as you said, maybe trying to get a bit of a gain from his slipstream from Alonso. Alonso's not looking that quick either. 10th place, having had a really good run in practice. Yeah,
it can all change quite quickly, though. 5 minutes left of the session. Sergio Perez is in the garage. He's half a second off Charles Leclerc's time, and Max Verstappen has just popped up into P2. He's just over a 10th off Leclerc. But the sectors now, the green sector's coming in thick and fast, and it is Carlos Sainz who's just gone purple in the first sector. So Verstappen is up to 2nd place, 1/10 now away from Charles Leclerc. With track evolution, I reckon everyone has to get back out there, apart from probably Leclerc and Verstappen, who may well have done enough now with a near on half a second gap, even from Perez in 2nd, down to his teammate in 3rd. But they're not giving up the ghost yet. Charles Leclerc still out there, still trying to find time. And of course, this is still learning time for the likes of Leclerc and Verstappen, who may well be duelling it for pole later on. And it's interesting that most of the front runners have stayed out, haven't they? Some of the back markers have come in for pits. Stroll's on an outlap at the moment, Ricciardo's on an outlap, but the top teams are all just staying out, trying to get more time out of these tyres, which is very unusual for qualifying. Learning all the way. They should make it through this part fairly comfortably. Sainz improves to go to the top. Now Leclerc responds and goes ahead of his teammate. 1 minute 33.6 is the new benchmark. Sainz is the other man into the 1 minute 33s. We've got 3 minutes and 43, 42, 41 seconds left on the clock. And Logan Sargent is back up into 4th place. He's ahead of Sergio Perez, showing the pace of the Williams and the track evolution that we're seeing here. Yeah, there's a little bit of debris or something on the track there that Charles Leclerc just drove past, so we'll keep an eye on that. Hulkenberg jumps up to 4th place from 18th, So he's going to be on the fridge. He's still 7/10 off Charles Leclerc. Alonso, though, he only pops up into P8, 1 second off Charles Leclerc. So people are improving, Jolyon, but is it going to be enough?
Everyone's got to improve. The times are tumbling so quickly. Leclerc, Sainz and Verstappen are safe. Gasly's gone up to 4th place. Bottas is 5th. Hulkenberg 6th. Magnussen 7th. Sargent is now 8th, meaning Perez, who's had to go back out of the pits, he's on an outlap in 9th, ahead of Alonso, Hamilton, Norris, Russell. All of those are in trouble here. 10th down to 13th position. No one is safe. Not least Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, who's dropped down to 17th, and with 2.5 minutes left on the clock, he's going to have to find something. But in these sort of sessions, street circuits, night session, the track grip is flying up. One mistake, a yellow flag, all of these things can make a difference. Yeah,
and we haven't as yet, surprisingly, seen anyone shoot off down the escape road at turn 12, which has been a really common thing in the free practice sessions across this weekend. The sound now you can hear is Yuki Tsunoda, who is sitting down, well, plumb last of the order, 2.8 seconds off the pace. So he sounds like he's on a build lap now. And we're just catching a replay, and just missed the wall, does Lance Stroll on the exit of turn 12.
Yeah, getting closer. Still, only Alex Albon has hit the wall at the end of FP3. Didn't cost him any running, it cost everyone running. And that just stopped the last 4 minutes. We're on to the last flying laps then, and the drivers in the drop zone are Zhou, Piastri, Stroll, and the 2 AlphaTauris, Ricciardo and Tsunoda. This would be a nightmare for them, because AlphaTauri, in the battle in the Constructors' Championship, are really trying to haul in Williams. They're up into 8th position. They've been scoring a lot of points in the last races. They've got themselves to within touching distance, but with Williams' pace, AlphaTauri 19th and 20th, this would be a disaster for them.
Yeah, it would be. Definitely would. So at the moment, Norris is on a push lap. He's set a personal best in the first sector. Oscar Piastri has not set a personal best in the first sector, so that is not good news for the Australian, who gets it ever so sideways coming out of turn 9 there, as he heads now through turn 10, and then he'll bleed into the really tricky braking zone of turn 12.
Piastri's first sector is actually really poor, and he's down in 17th. Piastri could be in trouble. He's going to be on the cusp of making it through for another flying lap, though. There's 41 seconds left on the clock. Quick bit of math says he should just about do it and be the last man over the line. So Piastri comes down towards the final corners now, and with 30 seconds left, might be able to cross the line and have one last go at getting himself out of trouble. But there's a yellow flag down at turn 5, which has been a nemesis for drivers so far. Now they're pressing on, they're finding themselves in trouble, and that's going to mean that many drivers can't improve on this final lap, Alice.
Yeah, it does, and I wonder if that's going to affect Lance Stroll, because he's set a personal best. It just flashed up on the screen in sector 1.
It's Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda off track and has recovered. We're back under green flag conditions, but Tsunoda will be out then in 20th position. Has it affected anyone else? Daniel Ricciardo's on a flying lap from 19th position. Piastri will start another one just about now, and Stroll's still pushing, so everyone else can improve. Hamilton's up to 6th place, and that will see him safely through into Q2. Hulkenberg jumps up to 4th. That track evolution really still coming alive, and Magnussen's done the fastest first sector. There's some underdogs in play, I think, today, as George Russell comes through and gets himself into the top 3. Norris is in the pits, and he's fallen down to 15th position. Ricciardo's up to 14th, and Lando Norris could well be in big trouble as well. Piastri's down to 18th. Ocon's out in 16th place. Zhou is out in 17th. We know Tsunoda's at the back, but can Stroll knock out Lando Norris? This is the sound of the Aston Martin now, coming through the final corner, flashing past our commentary box, and up he goes into 11th position. Norris is out in Q1 for the second time in 3 races. There's applause at the Aston Martin garage because Stroll found something, knocking McLaren out in their entirety. Piastri 19th, Norris in the pits, watches on as he goes out.
And what's interesting there is that you mentioned second time in 3 races. The first time was in Mexico, and that was on Norris. He made a series of mistakes in the first qualifying session in Mexico, and he went out as a result. This is just pure pace. Now, I was speaking to McLaren earlier in the day, and they were saying they were expecting to struggle. But I can't even imagine that they were thinking they were going to struggle as badly as this. They've been the second fastest team behind Red Bull for most of the second half of the season, and they're out in Q1, both cars at the most high-profile race, arguably, or at least one of the most high-profile races of the season.
Lando Norris has been runner-up in 6 of the last 9 Grand Prix. That's how good his run of form has been. But he wasn't there in Mexico. He charged his way back through to 5th place from pretty much the back. He's going to have to do the same this time around, and we're getting a replay of a huge amount of carnage coming down towards the final corner. Just everyone jostling for position on their outlaps, trying to get the lap in, and in the end I think everyone did get a flying lap in, I believe.
Oh
Yeah, that's a joke, honestly. Verstappen diving into one like crazy.
That's the sound of Esteban Ocon, and he is out. So just as a reminder, the drivers out here are Norris 16th, Ocon 17th, then it's Zhou, Piastri and Tsunoda all out.
What a stupid idiot.
The retort from Max Verstappen, who sent it down the inside, and I think that was as Ocon was trying to get a flying lap in.
So Ocon actually lost 1 second in the first sector, and that would have been because of Max Verstappen just throwing one, which actually seemed quite unnecessarily, down the inside.
So what I think happened, and what Verstappen's referring to there, is everyone else was stacked up. The chaos was trying to back. There was someone trying to back up all the cars into turn 14. We've seen this for many races now, and that's why drivers have been stopping in the fast lane of the pit lane. That's why we've had these incidents going on for a while now. Drivers were all backing up at the final corner. Those drivers are now under investigation for failing to follow race director's instructions about the maximum delta time. That's for going too slowly on the outlap. Now, that has been a routine message for all the qualifyings in the last 5 or 6 Grand Prix. But Ocon, as everyone else was backing up, just jumped on the throttle, squirmed through and jumped the queue, effectively. Max Verstappen sitting there up in 4th place, knows he's safe. I think he's just put manners on him. And I think he's just said, I'm going to lunge down the inside if you're going to play silly games with me, and that's up to you then, mate.
Well, there's history between those two, isn't there? And it's not just back to the shoving incident in the pits in Brazil a few years ago when Verstappen and Ocon collided when Verstappen was battling for the race win and took the Red Bull out of the race. It goes way back to their younger days. I don't think it's too strong to say they basically hate each other, and so Max Verstappen, as you say, it's just come to the surface again there.
Verstappen had to do FIA community service for his push on Esteban Ocon back in 2019 in Brazil. Yuki Tsunoda out. We know we didn't see his incident, but he made a mistake or something down at turn 5, brought out the yellow flag, didn't look very happy.
No, threw his headrest out of the car. Luckily it avoided all his mechanics sort of pushing him into the back of the garage, and then off he hopped. But yeah, not great for Yuki Tsunoda, who's been he's quite up and down. I find that he's one of these drivers that will have a really good couple of race weekends, and then all of a sudden he'll come to the next one or the next couple, and he'll really struggle. But that mistake has really cost him. Well, it cost him essentially. It's moving his way into Q2.
So we're getting ready for Q2. Lando Norris is still sitting in the cockpit of his McLaren, Rosanna, in 16th place, presumably hoping that there's going to be some level of infringement, track limits, time deleted from anyone else ahead.
We see that, don't we, with the teams instructing their drivers to stay put until the decisions come in. And in reference to Yuki Tsunoda, he was very vocal on the radio saying no tyre temperature. So obviously really struggling to get his tyre temps up in the AlphaTauri, but a disappointing outing for him, starting plumb last at this point.
There's another incident for Lance Stroll under investigation. The man that's got a 5-place grid drop for overtaking under yellow flags in practice earlier on is now under investigation for failing to slow underneath yellow flags, and that will be when Tsunoda went straight on at turn 5, and it looked like Stroll was in that sector. I thought it would have cost him the lap, but he managed to keep his foot in, jump up to 11th place, but that could well be another penalty for Stroll there.
Sometimes they get away with those. Not slowing for yellows, overtaking under yellows. It's very serious in motor racing, but occasionally there's mitigating circumstances, isn't there, Alice? And if he's shown that he's slowed enough in the mini sectors, because the lap's split into 3 big sectors and then a number of smaller mini sectors, if he's shown he's slowed down in the mini sectors or hasn't set a faster overall split, sometimes slowing down in the mini sectors is enough. He might get away with it.
Hamilton had exactly that in Mexico when Alonso spun at the end of Q1, was under investigation, but there was a different mitigating circumstance with the flashing yellow light panels. Norris is out of the car, he's out of the session. McLaren give up hope, and this is looking like a horrible weekend for them on their quest to try and chase down Ferrari, dream of getting closer to the top 3 in the Constructors' Championship. Norris still fighting for 4th place, maybe even 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship. That's looking pretty tricky for him now. They're both out, and we have got the green light for Q2. Out front in that session, Ferrari 1-2, looking right on it here. The cars filter out. 14 minutes and 44, 43, 42 seconds left on the clock, and we will go again then. Soft tyres for Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Alonso, Stroll, who's still in this one and will continue in this one. That it will be investigated after the session, his incident for not slowing down for Yuki Tsunoda's yellow flag. And we're going to go right into it. And these tyres, this is a really interesting dynamic then. Who stays out for how many laps on these soft tyres? Now the sessions are shorter. We had 18 minutes in Q1. There was a bit of leeway to come in late, to do a long run and then a shorter run. With 15 minutes and then 12 minutes for Q3, the top teams have got to really figure this out now.
It's going to be a really difficult call because they were all improving throughout the session on just one set of tyres. But some of the back markers who came in and fitted new tyres also improved at the end of the session. So they're going to have to make a calculation of how that's going to work best for them. And each team, the calculation will be different for them because each car treats the tyres differently.
Fascinating dynamic moving through this qualifying hour. We're getting into Q2. Drivers leaving the pits. Sergio Perez is the latest to do so. We've got 4 drivers left in the pits. His teammate Max Verstappen, as well as George Russell and Lewis Hamilton in the 2 Mercedes. And Valtteri Bottas waits in the 1 remaining Alfa Romeo as well. 11 cars out on circuit. Why do we get, more recently than I remember in history, all of this bunching up at the final corner? I don't remember it being such a mess before. Yeah,
I'm exactly like you. I don't ever remember, even when doing sort of qualifying myself in the junior category, this bunching up. It even happens in F2 and F3 now.
So I don't want to go into too much detail in the middle of a qualifying session, but a couple of races ago there was I think it was Mexico, when all that stuff was going down. At the end of the race weekend, Christian Horner did an interview where he said we should get to the root causes of these issues with the sort of stopping at the end of the pit lane and the maximum delta time on the out laps and so on. And the root cause of the issue is the tyres. Unfortunately, the tyres need to be in a narrow temperature window and they can't be overheated, otherwise you lose the grip completely. They run at too high a pressure as far as the teams are concerned, and Pirelli run them at that high pressure because the construction has a weakness in it. So it comes down to the fact that the tyres aren't good enough, and Pirelli haven't fixed that fundamental issue for a long time.
But then why do they all bunch together though? That doesn't make any sense to me, that's the reason that they're all going so slowly on into the final corner. They're obviously trying to create space.
They're all trying to get the optimum track position at the optimum track time, aren't they, in terms of track evolution? So they all just so happens that they end up in the same place at the same time, I think.
Yeah, that's been the case forever, though. That's the thing. It's always.
But the difference now is the tyres are so critical for that in that series of situations that I was describing.
Okay, certainly a messy situation that the FIA will need to get on top of, and that's going to be something that the teams are going to have to be aware of as well. Do they want to leave themselves open for the last possible lap and maybe be caught out with a yellow flag as well, as we're now going into Q2 and Q3 is around the corner. 4 cars still in the pits. George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas waiting it out for now. Fernando Alonso comes through, puts the time on the board, but it's not very quick. It's a cool 8 seconds off what Kevin Magnussen does to put a representative time on the board at 1 minute 34.3. Haas looking quite good here this weekend on different spec cars. Magnussen on the new spec. Hulkenberg has reverted to the older spec. They're both into Q2. And if the degradation's quite low, this could be a chance for Haas to score something in. Yeah, it could be. Again, could be one of the surprises of the weekend. Carlos Sainz has just flown past our commentary box window. He's now popped up into top spot, but Magnussen is not too far behind him, is he? He's
just over, or just under, shall I say, 2/10 off. And as I said that, Charles Leclerc, in the first time in Q2, is the first one to break into the 1:33s to the top of the times.
Back in to the top of the times, where he has been almost solidly so far this weekend. Topped FP1, the 8 minutes of it. Topped FP2, didn't top FP3 earlier on, but didn't get a chance to run a soft tyre late on when Albon hit the wall. And now he's back to the top as he was in Q1, but he's not there for long. Sergio Perez now goes quicker by just 1/1000th of a second. Fernando Alonso on this lap is on the fastest first sector. He's on a decent middle sector, and as he hits the brakes from 220 miles per hour for turn 14, heading down towards the MGM Hotel. Here he comes to the final corner and straight past our commentary box to get a time on the board. And Alonso goes to the top of the times, 1 minute 33.880. Aston Martin looking competitive.
Yeah, less than 1/10 of a second is separating the top three at the moment. As the sound you can hear is Lance Stroll. His effort only really puts him in 6th place, 1.1 seconds off his teammate.
Aston Martin still running Alonso ahead of Stroll as well at this stage.
Exactly, and 1.1 seconds, that's an ouch moment, isn't it? That's what led to the strop in the pits in Qatar, isn't it, that margin?
Yeah, let's hope we don't see any more of this weekend. Logan Sargent actually has just crossed the line, gone into 6th place and purple in the final sector in this session. So again, he's looking pretty happy in the car at the moment.
Sargent's flying. Stroll had a great weekend in Brazil. Fernando Alonso, you spoke to him, and he said that his Brazil drive was one of his top 5 races ever. Stroll only finished about 6 seconds back from him and out-qualified him. One of 3 times this year that he's ended up ahead of the Spaniard on qualifying day. But so far this one's been a tough one. He's got a 5-place grid drop. He's under investigation again. He managed to get himself into Q2, but he's a fair way away. Alonso at the top of the times from Perez. Leclerc is back in the pits, as is Sainz. The 2 Ferraris 3rd and 4th. Then it's Albon, Gasly, Magnussen, Sargent, Stroll, Ricciardo, the top 10. Russell now out on circuit on a flying lap, as is Lewis Hamilton, and now Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas leave the pit. So they've waited for nearly half this Q2 session.
So interestingly, Leclerc and Sainz and Ferraris, we were talking about tyre choice earlier, they have come in for new tyres after that first run.
Yeah, 3/10 away from their best on the Q2 run compared to what they did in Q1. So they've had to go again here.
Yeah, we've got Russell now, who's just set a personal best in the first sector. Lewis Hamilton set a personal best in the first and second sector. Obviously, they're at their first real push laps. They haven't actually really set a time yet. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be hard to say who's going to go out during this session, because the times across the field are relatively close.
Dare I hark back, Andrew Benson, to when you thought the usual suspects would go out in Q1, and then 2 McLarens have gone? We've got Logan Sargent flying around here. Well, all I'm saying is this is the day of unpredictability so far. Sargent is flying. Bottas is looking quite quick in the Alfa Romeo. He's got the confidence to just go for maybe 1 set of tyres here as well. Both Haas cars are still in, yet there's 2 McLarens and an Alpine out in the first part of qualifying, and Yuki Tsunoda, who's been on form recently.
And just to clarify that Ferrari thing, they were on used tyres on that first run, so that might explain why Perez was able to beat them. Oh no, he was on used tyres as well, sorry. So there you go.
But Alonso at the top of the times on new tyres in the Aston Martin.
Correct.
Lewis Hamilton is on a flying lap, so Mercedes have gone out and done a build lap, 13 and 14 seconds off the pace. This is their interpretation of how to get the most out of the tyres, and Hamilton now sweeping through turn 6, slowing it down now past the MSG Sphere at turn 7, brings it to the right hand side, 8, and then to the left very quickly for turn 9, the slowest speed section of the circuit. And now he can pick up the speed, use the low downforce configuration of the Mercedes and bring it flat out through 10, sparking his way down as he comes and hits the brakes for turn 12, past the Wynn Hotel, the biggest casino of these huge casinos in Las Vegas. And Hamilton is 3/10 away from Fernando Alonso through 2 sectors. Russell just behind him on circuit, 2/10 away, and Mercedes are slipstreaming here as well. Russell running just about 4 or 5 seconds behind Hamilton on track. Down towards the final corner for Lewis Hamilton, as Max Verstappen now pops in the fastest middle sector of the session so far. Hasn't got a time on the board yet either. So Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, Hülkenberg and Bottas all going to get something on the board right now. We're going to start with Hamilton. His teammates following him around. has been slightly quicker through the first two sectors. Mercedes has been quick in the final sector, and Hamilton proves exactly that. Does the fastest final sector of all, goes to the top of the times. Russell comes through, he's 300ths down. What about Max Verstappen? Here's the Dutchman coming through the final corner, blasts past our commentary box and blasts himself to top spot. Quarter of a second up on Lewis Hamilton. It's Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, Alonso fourth, and back in the pits then is Perez and the two Ferraris, but the two Ferraris are flying as well. Fastest middle sector here for Charles Leclerc.
He is, and that has been a really, really handy first sector as well. 0.3 quicker than Max Verstappen's effort in the first sector alone. But he's just lost that, as Charles Leclerc, to Kevin Magnussen. So the Haas is flying as Charles Leclerc takes a little bit too much curb there at 14, gets ever so sideways. That's obviously going to affect his exit now all the way down across the start-finish line. But I do expect he will pop quite easily at the top of the times, and wow, nearly 0.8 clear of Max Verstappen.
Well, hold the line, because Magnussen's flying as well. Now the fastest first sector of anyone. He's 0.4 up on Verstappen coming through the middle sector. So the times are tumbling, the track's getting quicker and quicker. Leclerc's just done the fastest lap of the weekend so far. Sainz has gone half a second down on his teammate. Verstappen is now 0.75 of a second away, and this is the sound of Kevin Magnussen sweeping through and jumping up into the top four. Magnussen in the Haas is up into the top four. We've got 4 minutes and 16 seconds left of this session. Hulkenberg in the down-spec Haas comes through and jumps up into 9th position. The times are still coming in. Valtteri Bottas now is the last driver to get a time on the board, and this is the sound of the Alfa Romeo, who's coming down now, up onto the Las Vegas Strip, stretching his legs past Caesar's Palace, past the Bellagio, and the next thing he will do as he approaches MGM Grand, the hotel, is stamp on the brakes for turn 14. Valtteri Bottas over the curbs for the left-hander, goes a little bit around the right-hander, and Bottas now, with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left on the board, has left it late, but can he jump himself up into the top 10 and drop Alex Albon then down into the drop zone? He can. 10th place for Bottas. So 3 minutes 30 left on the board. We've got Albon, Gasly, Sargent, Stroll and Ricciardo in the drop zone, and they are all on out laps, apart from Stroll, who's just starting a first flyer.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, I tell you what, to pick who's going to go out here, because the track's developing so much. These are now the crucial, the final runs. You need to put everything together, and you, of course, doesn't matter on any track, make no mistakes. But it's always tricky when you come to a street circuit, especially with these temperatures as well.
I don't even think Verstappen's safe in third position necessarily here with the evolution that we've seen. He's got 0.6 back to Alex Albon. Sergio Perez pits in the other Red Bull. So Perez is in 6th position.
I don't know if he's safe.
He's got 0.4 margin to the drop zone. Everyone in the drop zone is on a preparation lap on their tyres right now. So they've all gone on an out lap. They're going to go for the Mercedes route of bringing the tyres in, do a lap 13 or 14 seconds adrift, and then go for one final banzai. And they've got to try and hook it all up, make sure they don't catch a yellow flag, get the track position, which was so difficult for many to achieve at the end of Q1, and hook it up without a yellow flag infringement or anything else. There's plenty in play, but Perez is being wheeled back into the garage. He's not going to respond if there's a flurry of improvements.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got that bizarre choice there from Red Bull, because Max is still out there going round. So I'm surprised that they've opted to bring him out and put him into the garage. And he's been out in Q2 twice in the last six races. So I think this could be another one. He needs to hope that there's a yellow flag somewhere along the lap. But Lance Stroll in the mini sectors, he's just gone purple.
And for reference, Kevin Magnussen is 0.2 quicker than Perez at the moment.
I mean, has he got a problem with the car?
Well, that's what there must be. I can't work out why you would box him.
Bizarre from Red Bull. Perez in trouble. He's currently 6th place. Got to be in the top 10 as always to get through into Q3. There's 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the board, but there's crucially one lap for everyone behind him to try and jump up. And the flying laps are starting to come in right now. George Russell very quick through the first sector as he comes through up towards the MSG sphere, illuminated brightly down at turn 7, 8 and 9. The tight twisty corners on this very fast long straight circuit, and the improvements are coming in. Alex Albon starts a flying lap. Gasly, Sargent, Stroll and Ricciardo all in the drop zone, all desperate to find something. And Lance Stroll is one of them. Managed to just get himself out of Q1 at the final throws, and he's improving on this final lap of Q2 as well. He's a 10th and a half up on Bottas's time. Bottas currently on the bubble in 10th position. But there's loads. Everyone's improving at this stage.
Yeah, you can't call it. Pretty much everyone that's out there has just gone green in that first sector. So everyone on big improvements. Then this is where it counts with 25 seconds of the session remaining. This will be it, Jolyon. This will be the final laps. They won't get any more after this.
No, Daniel Ricciardo's in big trouble. He's had a horrible first sector, in fact. He's improved, but he's a long way adrift. Stroll's up into the top 10. He gets through into 10th position, but that is very precarious. Bottas is down in 11th, but the Finn is improving down towards the final sector as well. Sargent going quickly as well, as George Russell jumps up to 3rd place in the Mercedes, guarantees his place in Q3. Sargent is up into 6th, Hamilton 7th, Perez is now down to 8th, Alonso is 9th, and Hulkenberg is 10th. Alonso is now up into 5th. The times are coming in, and Albon is the next driver flying through. Bottas up into 8th position. Hamilton now 9th, Perez is in 10th and on the precipice of a Q2 exit once again. This is the man that could beat him, Alex Albon. This second Williams, the first one is up in 7th, Ricciardo's out in 15th, couldn't recover from that first sector. Albon does the fastest final sector, he's up into 6th, Gasly's up into 4th, Hamilton is in the drop zone, and Lewis Hamilton is not improving. Hamilton's going to be out along with Sergio Perez here, and I think that is us done for Q2.
Wow. I mean, I can't work out. Perez has surely got to have some kind of problem, because why? That's silly from Red Bull bringing him in if so. But Lewis Hamilton, man, I'm not sure what happened there, but he'll be really frustrated, especially when his teammate George Russell is sitting up there in 3rd place.
Couldn't go faster than me.
So Hamilton, like the rest of them, had a last flying lap to put an improvement in, but he didn't improve, and the track was getting better and better. The Williams found a heap of time. Yeah, Gasly's done an exquisite flyer at the end to get up into 4th place. The margins between the best teams out there and the worst teams are just negligible around here, and it means that Lewis Hamilton didn't improve. He was a 10th away, and he's out in 11th place, as is Sergio Perez. Don't know what happened there at Red Bull, but pitting him with a flying lap, 3 minutes left on the clock, obviously left him in major trouble with the evolution that we've got on the track today. And Perez goes out in the Red Bull. They're still fighting for second in the championship as well, those two, starting from 11th and 12th tomorrow. Joining them out is Hulkenberg, Stroll and Daniel Ricciardo, who actually pulled together 2 reasonable sectors but made a big mistake somewhere in the first. So AlphaTauri's wind has been well and truly knocked out of their sails. Ricciardo 15th, Tsunoda 20th, but big shocks there from Hamilton and Perez.
P14. All right, we'll focus on tomorrow.
That is the voice of a man that loves Las Vegas, but has not loved this weekend so far. Daniel Ricciardo looking forward to tomorrow, where anything can happen. But Andrew, Lewis has been pretty curious today. He's just not been nearly on George Russell's pace.
He was off in final practice, wasn't he? He's looked really quick through the rest of qualifying. They were neck and neck, weren't they, in the first session, and even on the first runs in the second session. Am I right about that? Yeah, it's like hundreds between them, and then suddenly nowhere. Quite often when you ask teams about these sorts of things, the answer will end up being they didn't get the tyres in the right window and therefore they didn't have enough grip. And I wonder if that's what happened to Lewis Hamilton, because obviously he shouldn't be half a second behind George Russell.
Interestingly, the last street circuit that we raced on, Singapore, Russell was also very strong. And then in the last phase of the race, there were the 2 Mercedes hunting down the Ferrari and of Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. And Hamilton looked like he'd found his feet again. But in qualifying that day, Russell was on the front row, almost sniffed pole position away from Carlos Sainz. And Hamilton was down in 5th, half a second away. Getting a replay of maybe where it went wrong for Hamilton here, but he just said he couldn't go any quicker.
Yeah,
made it simple.
Exactly. It sounded like he felt that he'd maximised it, but obviously he didn't. So it'd be interesting to hear. I mean, I suspect that immediately after the session, when Rosanna speaks to him, he won't have an answer because it didn't sound like he did in the car. But I think by tomorrow we'll have an idea from Mercedes as to what happened. And as you say, Jolyon, I bet you, as in Singapore, he'll be quick in the race. And if he is, then that will indicate potentially that it was just a tyre temperature issue.
So head scratching going on at Mercedes, head scratching going on in our commentary box still about why Sergio Perez pitted before the end. Las Vegas, the city of gambling, you'd have had good odds at 2 Williams, an Alfa Romeo and a Haas and an Alpine all making it through into Q3.
We finished quite early, no?
Yeah, as we discussed, going with people and everyone else went out at the start of the session.
That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense. So obviously they've tried to do an alternate plan to everybody else. But
didn't he say going with people?
Yeah. Everyone else went out at the start of the session, but then everyone was still out there at the end going quicker. So I can't quite
When you do
out.
something different to everyone else in Q2, you're the only driver that pits with 3 minutes remaining. You've got to look around and think that you've maybe not called it right when you're out there.
Also, your teammate has gone out and is running at the end of the session, and your teammate's been half a second quicker than you all year. So,
I just don't get it. Strange. Ninth time this year that he's failed to get into Q3 is Perez. So, not a great stat.
Red Bull often have curious strategies for Perez. Remember Silverstone, where he was queuing up at the end of the pit lane for an awfully long time, and then he ended up going out because he had cold tyres and couldn't get a flying lap in. That was Q1, at the end of Q1. Sometimes they do have this, maybe because they're not as confident of Perez getting through on whatever the strategy as Verstappen is. So Verstappen can do the norm and will always have a bit more pace in hand and have a bit more margin to do it.
But even that doesn't make sense, does it, in this circumstance? Because you'd want the guy who's struggling for pace, you want him right at the end on new tyres, surely. Just by the way, as a by the by, in the midst of all that chaos and Perez and Hamilton going out, Charles Leclerc went quicker again on his final run, only by 1/10 of a second, but just to consolidate his position as a very, very strong favourite for pole position.
Yeah,
I think.
half a second clear of his teammate in P2, so he's looking very, very strong. But yeah, who would have thought we would have had those drivers out in Q2, and we've got a nice, quite mixed bunch, I would say, in the fight for pole position, and obviously the rest of the place is down to 10th.
Yeah, what a topsy-turvy order we've had so far. Both McLarens out in Q1. Lando Norris, the form driver behind Max Verstappen, will start in 16th position. The two drivers fighting for second in the championship will start 11th and 12th. Hamilton ahead of Perez. So that's the drivers second, third and fifth have all gone out before we get to the final Q3 shootout here. It's been bizarre. We've got 2 Williams in the top 10 shootout. Hats off to Logan Sargent, still fighting for his seat. Third home race for him, third time lucky right now, because this is his most accomplished performance yet, Sargent. He's been right there with Albon for pace all the way through this weekend.
He could be securing himself a drive for next year here, I think, because he's been making steady progress over the last few races, as Williams expected him to do. He's been less crazy. He's had very much fewer accidents. In fact, I don't remember the last time he had an accident. He's had a load this year, but they've certainly stopped happening. And this weekend, as you say, Jolien, he's still a bit off Albon, but to be, what is it, a couple of tenths or something, that's a very respectable performance from him.
He was a 10th quicker than Alex Albon in Q1. He was 2 tenths slower. But remember, Albon's the driver that's hit the wall earlier on today as well.
The only one that's hit the wall, really, made some damage, which is quite surprising. I would have expected, especially on that exit of turn 12, where the wall almost, it's a lot narrower on the exit there. And we've seen Stroll was one of them that got extremely close to the wall there. So maybe I've just jinxed it. We're going to have a couple of red flags in this session as the green light at the end of the pit lane is now illuminated, and in the Alpine garage they fire up the car, the covers come off, and I guess Gasly will be the first one venturing out on track.
Alice Powell has jinxed it. You've heard it here first. We're into Q3, 11 minutes and 34, 33, 32 seconds left on the clock. How many times in Q3 have we seen the end on a street circuit with someone in the wall? It's been a couple of times. Charles Leclerc in the wall, when he's also been on provisional pole as well. Let's not forget Monaco a couple of years ago, Baku this year as well, coming into turn 5, and he ended up in the wall. It does happen. The drivers lean on it. They get closer and closer and closer to the walls through these times, and the last final efforts, occasionally they go over the top. I'm looking forward to this one. Leclerc, does he even need to get this close to the walls with a 6/10 margin to the field?
No, and I was just going to say, who do you think is going to be on pole? I guess we're all going to sit here with the same answer. But if he does have a small lock-up or makes a small mistake, which is quite easy to do during these long straights as the tyres cool down going into the heavy braking zones. Temperature in the air right now, 15.2 degrees, and track temperature not too far behind, 16.9. So they've roughly stayed the same since the start of the session. As riding on board now, and the sound you can hear is Carlos Sainz, as he's nice and tidy, not wanting to slip that tyre, Jolyon, is it? You want to heat it from the inside out just to make sure that you don't get any cold graining. And how often do we say that in Formula One? Don't want to get cold graining.
Not very often, but we had it in this Mexican phenomena in recent years, a couple of races ago. That's where it can happen, the cooler races. That's what we've got in the Las Vegas night here on Friday evening. I think it's Friday evening. Nearly lost track of time.
No, it's Saturday morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there we go. I'm not quite on the time zone still. Saturday morning. It's a Saturday qualifying. It's normal.
Except it's not, is it, according to the FIA, if you remember from earlier. But anyway.
We've got a race today.
Don't. You'll take me over the edge. I'm already frazzled. Fernando Alonso on a flying lap, coming through turn 3, and he is opening his DRS as he gets down the Koval lane and heads down to the MSG sphere. Lit up, very bright now ahead of him. He moves to the left-hand side. The DRS shuts as he smashes the brake pedal, gets it turned in for the 90-degree right-hander, which brings him straight through the left-hander at turn 6, flat out, and then slow it down past the lit up, brightly in yellow, red, white and blue. Look like Francois Sever's helmet colours there, as a nice reference back to Tyrrell 1970s drivers. But here comes Fernando Alonso coming out of turn 9, up down to the Las Vegas Strip, up towards turn 12 on a flying lap. Charles Leclerc, fastest man through the first sector though. He's 2/10 quicker than his teammate Carlos Sainz. He's 2/10 quicker still than Max Verstappen. Leclerc might be setting the benchmark here first time.
Yeah, he is, and he just seems to be unbeatable, doesn't he, at the moment? However, it is Sainz that holds the fastest middle sector, but only by 0.5 of a second, so he needs to pull something extra special out of the bag here in the final sector if he wants to beat his teammate.
Sainz hits the brakes for the final corner. Charles Leclerc now as well comes past Caesars Palace, comes past the Bellagio down the Las Vegas Strip on his right-hand side. Fernando Alonso will cross the line and put the benchmark on, but it's between the two Ferrari drivers at the moment. Verstappen out there as well as on the fastest middle sector. Can he put the cat amongst the pigeons? Sainz goes to the top, 1:33.0, but that should get beaten, and it is beaten by Charles Leclerc, only by a couple of hundredths. Can Max Verstappen do anything about either of those two Ferraris? Currently first and second, fastest middle sector. Here's the Dutchman, flashes past us. He's into third position. Leclerc top, Sainz is second, and Verstappen is within 1/10 of a second, 800ths back in third place on those first efforts.
Yeah, but Charles Leclerc has left some time on the board, I'm sure. He's a couple of tenths off his effort that he did in Q2, as Fernando Alonso has a snatch of the inside front left there. Gets away with it quite nicely, but we're still waiting to see times now from Russell as he weaves from left to right just to try and generate some tyre temperature. So he's got to set a time yet, same with Albon, Sargent and Bottas.
Albon, Sargent and Bottas all in the pits. Russell is out on circuit, but he's on a preparation lap, so he's been out, done an out lap, doing the Mercedes strategy of weaving, building up the speed as he comes past the Mirage now on the strip. The lights are really bright right now, past all the hotels, the Showpiece event, and Russell will now get his chance at winding it up for Q3. Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, Alonso, Gasly, good job from him again, up into 5th place ahead of Magnussen. They're the 6 drivers that have done flying laps right now. Barely anything to choose between Leclerc, Sainz and Verstappen. Caveat that Sainz has a 10th-place grid penalty. How Ferrari will be so frustrated with that after he hit the water valve cover at the start of FP1. A really unlucky moment for him and Ferrari because they don't like they've got the pace today. But here goes George Russell, hits the brakes for the first corner, brings it to the left-hand side, the rear end sliding as he gets on the throttle now, up towards turn 3, building the speed through 4, and he'll open the DRS and see what he can get on the board for this Q3 session.
Yeah, heads down, Let's see what he can do. He's been fairly strong in this first sector as George Russell, and actually in the last sector as well, so a little bit of time for him to find. But as I said that, already, Jolyon, 0.4 of a second off Charles Leclerc in the first sector, so not a great start to the lap here for George Russell.
He's miles away. Russell, Mercedes are good in the final sector. They've trimmed out some downforce. It might make them more raceable after they were the opposite of that last time out in Brazil, getting gobbled up on the straights all race long. Russell now winding it through up to turn 12, the tricky corner, the left-hander where so many lockups have occurred this weekend, and he's cleanly through it, and he's bringing some time back to Leclerc now. He's quicker than the Ferrari man through the middle sector, still 3.5 tenths back, but this Mercedes is good on the straights, and that's what he's on now. 2 kilometres of the Las Vegas Strip as he heads down towards turn 14. The final big braking zone is about to come as he heads towards the MGM Grand right in front of him. Turns it into the left-hand side, avoids the curb on the left, clatters the curb on the right at turn 15. Now he can get on the gas once again down the final long blast, and Russell will see if he can get up towards the top 3, separated by almost nothing, 800ths between them. What about Russell? No, 5th place, half a second off. He is slotting in just behind Fernando Alonso, just 100th between them. So 4.5 minutes left on the board. Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, Alonso, Russell, Gasly and Magnussen, the 7 drivers to have done a time.
That was close.
But that was the sign of Max Verstappen getting quite close to the wall.
Yeah, there wasn't much more room there. Couldn't get too much closer, but lucky for him, no contact. So on outlaps now, Albon and Sargent and Bottas. So they will be doing just 1 lap here. Ferrari sat poised in the garage. The mechanics start to remove the tyre warmers, all ready to strip them off and to send Charles Leclerc back out, as the sound you can hear now is riding on board with one of the Williams. They're building tyre temperature.
I just want to throw a curveball in there.
Oh, go on.
Here we go.
According to the timing screens, Fernando Alonso was on used tyres on that lap, where he's gone 4th fastest.
And he had a meaty lockup.
Down
at turn 12.
So you're saying...
I'm not saying anything.
He's going to be on pole?
That's just fact, according to the timing screens.
That's a curveball.
Yep.
We've got 3 drivers separated by next to nothing. The order is Leclerc from Sainz from Verstappen. Leclerc and Verstappen, the 2 pole favourites here, stay in the pits. Everyone else is out on circuit. Carlos Sainz went very early in the other Ferrari. Now Charles Leclerc leaves the pit lane in the pole-sitting Ferrari right now with 3 minutes and 15 seconds left on the clock. Max Verstappen, the champion, waits alone in the pit lane. He will be the last man to take to the track and see if he can depose the Ferrari duo from, I would say, the provisional front row, from the top 2 spots. Sainz right now will start 12th place tomorrow, so that'll put him down there with Perez and Hamilton. We're going to have a real show on our hands, aren't we, tomorrow at this rate? Here we go then. Carlos Sainz blasts past our commentary box, and he'll get on for a final lap of Q3. Sainz through turns 1 and 2, up towards the right-hander at turn 3.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Yes, 2.5 minutes on the clock in the final part of qualifying Q3. And as things stand, it's Ferrari's Charles Leclerc who is fastest of all, ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz, and then Max Verstappen in P3. But we're winding it up now for the final hot laps, and it's Jolyon Palmer, the former Formula 1 driver, in the commentary box alongside racing driver Alice Powell. So Jolyon, let's get this qualifying finished and find out who'll start on pole position for the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
We are poised and ready for the final laps of this dramatic qualifying hour. Hamilton is not in contention. He's out in 11th. Perez is out in 12th. Lando Norris, the Brit that's been stunning recently in the McLaren, is out in 16th. It's been the day of shock so far, and it looks like it's going to be a showdown between Charles Leclerc, currently on provisional pole, and Max Verstappen, the champion, who sits in 3rd position and is desperate to try and get back on top of the times on a Saturday. Charles Leclerc starts a flying lap right now into the left-hander of turn 1. The man that's on provisional pole has had many a pole this season already, a couple recently, hasn't had a victory, but Ferrari are on form here, Alice Powell.
Yeah, they certainly are. Charles Leclerc, I'd say it's his to lose at the moment. His teammate is keeping him poised, keeping him on his toes. Bringing in these tyres is proving so important at these cold temperatures as they bleed round no personal best for the top 5, top 6 at the moment as they continue to warm up the tyre, continue to build up the temperature and make sure that everything is in the window, Jolyon, as we enter now less than a minute remaining of this session.
Coming up to 1 a.m. local time in the Las Vegas night, and Charles Leclerc's first sector is not a great one. The Monegasque driver on provisional pole needs to find a little bit more here as he comes out of turn 12, up the long straight, down the Las Vegas Strip, past the glorious looking hotels. Caesar's Palace on his right hand side. The Bellagio will approach as he comes down 2 kilometres of straight and hits the brakes for the final time on this lap, up towards turn 14. It's a long drag and then a big smash of the left-hand pedal. Sainz is quicker than his teammate through the first sector. He's on a lap just behind as well. Max Verstappen is out there and is not going quickly at all. Verstappen's not on this. He's 6/10 away. Leclerc might have a free pass in the end for pole position, but here he comes anyway, past our commentary box, and Charles Leclerc improves by a big chunk. He puts 3/10 now to his teammate. Leclerc is on pole, and that may well do it for Ferrari. Verstappen backs off. He's not going to do it. Verstappen is only third. Can anyone get ahead of the Dutchman? Magnussen comes through on the day of shock so far and gets up to 4th position. What about Carlos Sainz, the man that has a 10-place grid penalty for really unluckily clouting a water valve in FP1 yesterday? It's been a big story yesterday. Today has been all about the on-track action as Sainz hits the brakes and slides coming through turn 14. He's maximising it in the Ferrari, trying to get himself onto terms with his teammate, and he's really quick. They're neck and neck as Sainz now comes up to the final corner, building the speed over 200 miles per hour. He cuts the timing beam and he doesn't do it. Charles Leclerc is going to hang on to pole position for Ferrari once again as Logan Sargent in the Williams is up into 4th. There's more times coming in. There's minnows getting themselves way up the grid here. Sargent, who's only scored 1 point all year, is up to 4th. George Russell in the only remaining Mercedes goes up to 4th. Now Alex Albon goes up to 5th. We're just waiting for Pierre Gasly, who himself jumps up into 5th. Time's tumbling at the end, but Charles Leclerc is your pole sitter for the Las Vegas Grand Prix tomorrow.
Yeah, that was, well, a great session there from Charles Leclerc, and obviously gutting for Carlos Sainz. He was so close as celebrations for Ferrari down in the pit garage. They're really pleased. Obviously with that, they would have loved to have had a front row lockout, but Carlos Sainz will be getting that penalty. But it's a great job for Charles Leclerc, who's really been on fire all weekend, hasn't he? He's been so dominant pretty much in most of the sessions. Obviously we'll have to rule out free practice 1, but even then he was still fastest with the 8-9 minutes that we got of running in free practice 1.
Yes, P1. Good job.
So that was Charles Leclerc and his race engineer taking pole position here in Las Vegas.
Slow and charge off. Oh, that was a very good lap.
Not a lot of words from Carlos Sainz there, but you can sense his frustration. P2 on the road today for him, but of course he'll have that 10-place grid penalty come the Grand Prix. So we'll see Charles Leclerc line up alongside Max Verstappen for the race. It's going to be an interesting one. Some minnows, as Jolyon Palmer said, scoring a potential point tomorrow, potentially. And of course tomorrow is actually today, because the race will get underway at local time 10 p.m. here in Las Vegas. Well, it has been quite an interesting evening here with Charles Leclerc taking the spoils thus far. Can he hang on to it and take victory under the lights in Las Vegas in the Grand Prix? He's congratulating his teammate Carlos Sainz at the moment. We'll have to wait and see what he can do in the Ferrari tomorrow. Up next is Patrick Kilty, but now let's get your latest BBC News. We're going to continue now on BBC Sports Extra. So commentary will continue with Jolyon Palmer, Alice Powell and Andrew Benson in the commentary box. So it's Charles Leclerc on pole position. He's been on fire all weekend, guys, right from the off. FP1, although we only had 8 or 9 minutes, he still was firing all cylinders out of the box. Can he hang on to that pole position and take victory here in Las Vegas, Joe?
Well, that's the big question now. He's had a couple of poles recently, and he's been nowhere near hanging on to it. That was in Austin, where he slipped back through the field, in Mexico as well, where he was done at the start. Let's hear what he's got to say, though, first. 2 Ferraris in the top 2. Max Verstappen parking up in 3rd. They're speaking to James Hinchcliffe.
Max Verstappen, P3 for the race tomorrow, but it looked a little tricky out there. Low temperatures, low grip. How tough is it to find that ultimate limit when the consequences are so high with all these walls?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, of course, it's quite cold out there. It's quite slippery. Then, of course, being on a street circuit as well, you try to get as close as you can to the walls, but that's not always very straightforward. But it was enjoyable out there. I do think that we maximized today. I think already the whole weekend so far we've been lacking a little bit of one-lap performance, and that was also quite clear in qualifying. But yeah, I hope, of course, the more in the race that we are good on the tires again, and then we can work our way forward.
Yeah, obviously no historical data to go on into the race with. So how confident are you in the race car that you guys have for tomorrow?
It felt good yesterday. Of course, I would have liked to have a little bit more pace today, but of course we know that the points are tomorrow, and it's going to be a tough one. First one here, you never know. There might be any safety cars, and it's of course a very long straight. A lot of racing will happen there, and then of course I hope we are good on the tires.
All right. Well, best of luck. Congratulations on today. Carlos Sainz, here we are, front row. What a comeback after what happened to you yesterday. Just talk about, first of all, your session, and then the team doing such a great job to get you back on track and a nice recovery.
Yeah, well, first of all, an outstanding job by the whole team. We've dominated qualifying together, after a tough Friday yesterday, to put together the whole car again and to get a front row lockout. I think it's incredible. Obviously, I would love to be on pole because it would mean I would start 11th instead of 12th. But I think, we did the maximum that we could today. Obviously still disappointed to yesterday, I'm not going to lie. I'm still on a very bad mood. I'm trying not to show it too much, but it's what it is.
Well, you're hiding it well, and you certainly hit it well behind the wheel. Like you said, that penalty is going to put you back a little bit, but you've run well on the last street circuit that we ran here. What do you think is realistic tomorrow starting from 12th?
Well, let's see. Depends obviously how the start goes, how the graining on the tires is, and then how easy it is to overtake. I think the pace clearly looks like we have it this weekend. I would love to be fighting for the win tomorrow with Charles and Max, but unfortunately I'm going to be on a comeback mood or on a comeback race, and hopefully I can get to the front at some point and battle with them, but I think it's going to be tricky.
Well, unfortunate for you, but it's going to be fun for everyone to watch because we know the car's fast. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And for the 5th time in the season, 23rd time in your career on pole position once again, Charles, just tell us about your run and how happy you are to be P1.
Of course, happy. For first in Las Vegas, obviously it's an incredible event, and to be starting from pole tomorrow is great. However, a bit disappointed with my laps in Q3. I didn't do a good enough job, but it was enough for P1, so that's all we need. And now full focus on tomorrow to try and put everything together in the race. Normally that's where we lack most performance, so I hope we can put it all together and win here.
Well, based on the gaps that we saw in Q2 and then the gap we saw in Q3 for what you said was a bad lap, you must be pretty confident that you have enough in hand to really take the fight to Max and Red Bull tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I think my best lap was in Q2, which the track evolution is big here, so I should have done it in Q3, but I didn't. But again, it's like this, and we are starting from pole, so I cannot complain.
And just finally, talking about the atmosphere here in Las Vegas, the fans that have sat through everything to be here today and watch you qualify on pole, how's this event treating you?
I mean, I love it. I came here once in Vegas in the past, and it was to party, so very different to what I'm doing this weekend, but hopefully we work hard enough in order to win tomorrow and then have a good party to celebrate that win. But apart from that, it's amazing to be here and to see so many people in town for Formula One, which is a sport that I love, and to see that how much work there's been put into such an event, and I hope it will be a successful one with a good race tomorrow.
Well, yeah, you're in the right town to throw a good party, so best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
That's the former IndyCar driver James Hinchcliffe asking the questions to your top three here in Vegas, and it's Charles Leclerc on pole ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz, who'll start further down the order because of that 10-place grid penalty, and Max Verstappen third on the road this evening. Guys, I enjoyed that qualifying session. I don't know about you, but I've completely forgotten about a water valve cover popping up on Friday. You, Joe?
What water valve? Something happened yesterday?
Have they redeemed themselves?
Sure, was it today? Was it yesterday? Or was it?
Oh, Alice, don't go there. What a session that was, though. And I think this sort of silences some of the doubters, at least as we stand. Maybe the race tomorrow will be incredibly dull. But with the order that we've got, I don't see how it can be. Leclerc and Verstappen will be in a league of their own, I would have thought. In fact, Verstappen only just pipped George Russell. Russell got to within 0.08 of demoting Verstappen off the front row on his final lap. It was a decent effort. Gasly, Albon and Logan Sargent, they're only a couple of tenths away. The whole field is so close. We've got Hamilton coming through from further down. We've got Andrew Benson's curveball, Fernando Alonso coming through from further down. We've got Sergio Perez coming through from further down. We've got Lando Norris coming through from 16th on the grid. And we've got Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari coming through from 12th. This is poised to be 99.99% show, and I'm here for it.
I'm going to put a dampener on things. You say they're going to be coming through. No, but where are they going to be coming through? Where are those overtaking spots going to be? Can they get it done?
Yeah, of course they can. Yeah. Alice, this is a 6.2 kilometre circuit. It's wide, it's low downforce, long straights. Should be a total.
Yeah, take your pick. DRS zones, of course, are down from 4 to 5, and then we've got a DRS zone down from, well, effectively just after turn 13 down to turn 14, and that is on that 1.7 kilometre straight. So, and even if you get a good exit, to be fair to you, out of 14, you can then attack down into turn 1. So we've got plenty of options. Take your pick.
The one thing I'm a little bit sad about is that Sainz isn't up there to help Leclerc and provide some sort of rear gunner action, because I think Verstappen from the front row is going to be a serious looming threat, and I don't want to be even more down than I've just been. But the last couple of starts that Leclerc's done in Grand Prix, he didn't start in Brazil, but in Austin and in Mexico had pole, and he didn't even lead into the first corner. He didn't even lead after about 100 metres. So Leclerc's got to get off the line, and then hopefully we'll have a great fight on our hands.
You took the words straight out of my mouth. It's getting off the line, and Max has really nailed that at the last several Grand Prix. So it is a short run down to turn 1. But as you said, Leclerc has not been able to really get good starts when he has been starting on the starting grid down into turn 1 on the short run. So he needs to really make sure he absolutely nails his start tomorrow.
Well, as Jolyon and Alice say, there's plenty to look out for during the Las Vegas Grand Prix. We think we've got a quite exciting grid on our hands. The lights are still dazzling us here around this new street circuit. Hopefully you'll join us at 5:30 tomorrow morning for the Grand Prix. It is set to be quite a show here in Las Vegas. My thanks to Jolyon Palmer, Alice Powell and Andrew Benson. We will talk to you at 5:30 tomorrow ahead of the Grand Prix getting underway. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.